Welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. We're going to start in the Gospel of John today. And this book, now I did go out of sequence in terms of the Gospel for this reason. Now, typically, let me kind of back up because this is going to be sort of an introduction today. I don't know how far we're going to get into the scriptures, but this is going to be sort of an introduction to the Gospel of John. But the arrangement of the Bible as we know it today, okay, as we have it today, let me see, okay, so the Bible, okay, as it is arranged. And by the way, remember the Bible is just, the Bible itself means a collection of books. So when we say the Bible, we're talking about a collection of 66 books. And in these studies, I typically do not get into the scholarly aspect of this because I'm not a scholar. I'm not qualified to say I'm a scholar. What I do is read. I've read the Bible. I read the Bible, and then I teach the Bible plain and simple. That's it. I benefit from the scholarly work, meaning this. I always say that the scholar works are only as good as the facts, not their opinion. So I don't do commentaries ever. However, I stand on the shoulders, like a lot of people, of the work of the scholars. So for example, this would be a good example. This book here is the Spiro. I always get his name right. Zodhiates, okay? Zodhiates, okay? This is a complete Greek breakdown of all the Greek words in the Bible. So if I want to know, well, what did the word say in the Greek? Here's the source. I also have a Vines, okay, expository Greek. I also have up there Kenneth Weiss, okay. So these are Greek scholars. It's all Greek to me, so I don't get into. I know a lot of people like to try to break down the Greek. They get a charge out of that. When I was younger, I used to get a charge out of doing that, but now I only seek the facts, and you never hear me. And that's one of the things why you never hear me quote men in this Bible study. And rarely in my Bible studies you ever see me quote scholars and stuff, or especially commentary. But I never do commentaries. I never give a commentary perspective. And the reason why is because we are reading the scriptures. Now, as far as facts, we certainly be given. We will go with that. So, the and another reason why I don't get into, again, a lot of the scholastic side of it, because if you have a study Bible, this is not a study Bible. I have plenty of study Bibles, but this is not a study Bible. But as you can see here, like this is Matthew, and then you see at the top that little short description. But then there are other, and I have them up there, uh, more in-depth details, scholastic details on the books of the Bible. And then you have scholars that argue over who wrote the Bible. Almost in every single case, there's going to be a debate as to who wrote which book. So as as we are getting ready to study John, there's people that say, well, John didn't write it, right? So you always have that. And I don't get into that, okay? I don't get into that. One, because obviously I'm not doing any primary research, archaeology of such. So I'll just take the word for it with the general consensus, okay? But as how the Bible is arranged, okay, how the Bible is arranged, um, I'll do this. Let me go to this right quick. Let me show you so you can. As the Bible is arranged, and I have to do this every now and then. So here we go. This is an online Bible study, which I like. Saves a lot of. Oh, here we go. All right, I think you can see that. All right, so as the Bible is arranged, okay, this was done, I think, centuries ago. You have the Old Testament, and how they arrange this in terms of sections, and this is important, right? What you're looking at here, starting with Genesis, is the historic section. So, and then they arrange them as they believe the dating of the writing. And here's where the scholars come in, because there is internal evidence as well as archaeological, I know I just put it, I don't know why. Anyway, archaeology, the evidence, okay. And then sometimes when you read through something, and if something is mentioned, they can kind of date the timing that way. But anyway, so the books are arranged as best as they can according to the dating. So in the first section of the Old Testament, in the first 5 books you have from Genesis to Deuteronomy, they were all written by Moses, okay? And you can probably say over a 40-year period of time. We don't know exactly. I don't know when exactly he wrote it. But anyway, during that 40-year period, okay, he wrote the first book. And then you have Joshua. And then you have Judges. And then when you come to Ruth, you're getting very close to the time of David. Then you get into 1st and 2nd Samuel. Okay. And again, these are all kind of dating as they're arranged with the date. And then you have 1st and 2nd Kings going into the period after David, and then the period of the kings. So 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Okay, the period of the kings of Israel and Judah, and then the post-Babylonian exile, the 70-year exile. You got Ezra, okay, and then Nehemiah, and then Esther. Okay, these are post-Babylonian times. Now, so that concludes the historical section. Then you have what's called the books of wisdom and literature, which is Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastics, and Songs of Solomon. Now, Job is, because of this different section, this is why it's located here, but however, Job is actually the oldest writings we have of the Old Testament. So it predates, best around, figured to be around the time of Abraham, around that time, okay? And then, of course, the dating of Psalms, which have 2 different contributors, you could say, Moses and then David, and then a couple other people, I think, in there. And Proverbs, so again, we're moving on in the date. Proverbs written by Solomon, so Proverbs, Ecclesiastics, and Songs of Solomon, Songs of Songs. I think in the King James it says Songs of Solomon, but anyway, written by Solomon. Now, when we come to this section, the writings of the prophets, and this is important, the writings of the prophets, they group them together as the major prophets and then the minor prophets. I don't necessarily agree with that, and this is why. I believe that the grouping should be according to the dates. So actually, this section, in my opinion, should start with Hosea, okay? Because Hosea's dating predates Isaiah for about a couple hundred years, 250 years. And the reason why that's important is because in this section of the writing of the prophets, you have God beginning to speak prophetically, warning Israel of their sins, to turn from their sins. And so there's a different prophetic voice that you can hear during the time. So in reality, it should be Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, and then I think Obadiah, I should have done this. I should have put up my other chart. My other chart has a better dating here. Oh, yes. But anyway, then Jonah, but Micah, I want to say Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk is around the time of Isaiah. And then Zephaniah. Now, a couple of these books are going to hit around Isaiah. And then as you go back, you start with Isaiah, and then you come along with Jeremiah around the actual exile, the destruction of Jerusalem, and then Lamentations, the book of just lamenting the destruction of Israel. Then Ezekiel and Daniel are contemporaries, okay? And then after that you have Zechariah. I'm sorry, Haggai. These are post-prophet, post-exile books. And then Zechariah, and then Malachi. So then we, of course, come to Matthew. And Matthew is, again, Matthew, Mark, Luke are believed to be arranged according to the date. Now, how I studied this, remember we studied Luke and Acts. And because John really is the latest, now they grouped them together according to gospel, and then Acts stands alone. Okay, so Luke and Acts actually were written by Luke around the same time. Okay, and then so John would be the last, really the last writer, the last gospel for sure, because it was written around 80, 90. So then you go into Romans, written by Paul, Corinthians, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, and then Timothy, and then 2nd Timothy. Actually, see, 2nd Timothy should be Timothy, Titus, because they're written around the same time, and then Timothy is the last letter by Paul. So actually, 2nd Timothy should be even past Philemon. And then you have Hebrews, we don't know who wrote Hebrews, okay? But it's certainly believed to be before the destruction of the temple. Then James' letter, and then 1st and 2nd Peter. And then when we come to John, as we're going to get into John's writing, so John, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, are believed to be written much later. And then you have Jude, but again, Jude would be, it's believed to be written before the AD 70. Then you have, of course, Revelation, which is the last book or the latest book written. But I think all of John's letters are written around the same time. Now, the reason why I'm going through all this, of course, is to explain kind of why I saved John. I did Luke and Acts at the same time, written by the same writer to the same person. Okay. Now, the Gospel of John, which we're getting ready to study, as far as the Gospels are concerned, and all of the Gospels have their purpose. And if, like I often look at, when I listen to the critics, and the critics will say that, the Gospels are contradictory, and oftentimes when which is always funny to me, that you have people that are criticizing the Bible that they don't agree with. And so their purpose to try to tear down the Bible, which they will never do, but they're going to try. But really, it's not written to them. It's not written to the enemies of the Bible, the enemies of God. It's written to God's people. So the entire Bible is a revelation written to God's people. Okay, and so um, um, there are no. I don't when I say there are no contradictions, there are scribal errors that scholars admit. But when you think about the continuity of what is written, there are no errors. Okay, the revelation of God is continual. And because you don't understand it doesn't mean that it's an error. Now, the gospel, even though Matthew, Mark, and Luke pretty much they seem like they're telling the same story, but when you read them, there are distinct differences in each. So as I often say, if you think of the four gospels that arrive at a four-way stop sign, and the four-way stop sign, okay, you're looking at the same scene, but from four different perspectives, right? So like now, as you can see, the camera that's pointed this way, it's you're looking at a perspective. If I turn the camera and you look at it that way, you're going to see a different perspective. And if you turn it that way, you're going to see a different perspective. Four different perspectives. And that's how the Gospels are written. They tell different perspectives. John is unique in his Gospel. And I believe possibly because of the timing of John. It is the oldest of the Gospels, and it is written in the 80s, 90s, whereas all of the other Gospels are written somewhere between 40s to the late 50s. So around the same time. So John is approaching his letter from a very different perspective, post-temple destruction. All of the other Gospels are before the temple destruction. This is okay. So John, some 60 years after the resurrection of Jesus, is writing, but he's also writing to the world. Now, Matthew concentrates on Matthew is a Jewish gospel. You see more reference to the Old Testament scriptures showing that Jesus is the Messiah. Okay, as opposed to Luke, who is a Gentile. Remember, he was a Gentile, and so you see a lot of Gentile reference. A Gentile who's looking at the Jewish culture, the Jewish Messiah. Now, John is writing again to the world. Okay, Mark, by the way, presents a very kind of Messiah action, Jesus action. That's why when you read Mark, it's always in right away, in straight way. In this, he keeps writing. Okay. Now, as we're going to see, even in the very beginning, that John is going to present the Son of God to the world. The Son of God as God's Son, as the God before the beginning of time. And we'll get into that when we get into the Gospel of John. All right, so that's kind of an introduction, and then we will get into the Gospel of John in the next study. So don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome, and I'll see you in the next study.